You know that feeling, right? Like the world of digital finance is just moving incredibly fast. It feels like there's just so much information coming at you all the time. Keeping up is almost a full-time job itself. And it's not really about finding more info, is it? It's about getting the right insights, something clear, something you can actually use. Well, today we're going to try and cut through some of that noise. We're taking a close look at what feels like a really landmark moment in U.S. crypto regulation, specifically the recent passage of the Genius Act in the Senate. And this feels like more than just another headline. It seems pretty foundational.
That's exactly right. Our goal here in this deep dive is really to unpack what this bill actually means, for stablecoins, for the US dollar's role in digital finance, and, well, what it suggests about the future of this whole digital asset space. We want to get past the surface level stuff and into the core insights that you'll probably want to grasp.
Okay, great. So if you're sitting there wondering how this might actually reshape things, we're going to explain exactly what this Genius Act is, why it's getting so much attention, and crucially, what happens next as it moves over to the House. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, the big news, the thing we're really focusing on today.
Yeah.
The U.S. Senate passed the Genius Act. And this wasn't close, was it? It passed decisively. The vote count was 68 in favor, 30 against.
Yeah, and that vote count, 68-30, is really significant. What's truly remarkable here is this isn't just any bill. It's the first major piece of crypto legislation to actually clear the Senate. That signals a very, very clear shift in federal policy towards crypto. And the bipartisan support it got, especially after weeks of pretty intense back and forth, it really underlines how important lawmakers see this moment.
A historic vote, it really sounds like it. But, okay, for those of us trying to keep everything straight, Genius. What does that actually stand for? Or maybe more importantly, what are the core things this bill actually does?
It's interesting, our sources don't actually spell out what Genius stands for. Maybe that's deliberate, keep the focus on the substance. But what is crystal clear, and definitely more important, are its core provisions. The bill's main job, its primary focus, is regulating stablecoins. It specifically mandates that stablecoins need to be backed one-to-one, either by actual cash or by short-term U.S. treasuries. And just a quick technical point there, those specific assets, cash and short-term treasuries, they're chosen because they're incredibly liquid and stable. That's key to making sure the stablecoin can hold its value, its peg, even if the market gets choppy. That's the whole promise, right?
Right, that one-to-one backing sounds like a massive step for making stablecoins actually stable.
Yeah.
What about the companies issuing them? What new requirements are hitting them? I saw something about mandatory annual audits, especially for the big ones, market cap over $50 billion.
Yeah.
Plus, they'll need to keep clear records, follow federal compliance standards. How tough is that going to be for the industry to actually put in place?
Oh, it's a significant lift, no question. These aren't just small adjustments. It's a major increase in oversight. It's really designed to build public trust and make the whole system feel more sound, more integral. What's also quite interesting is how far this bill reaches. It specifically takes aim at foreign stablecoins that operate in the U.S. market. It lays out guidelines for these cross-border issuers, basically trying to bring offshore platforms under American regulatory oversight. But that does raise a pretty important question, doesn't it? Given how borderless crypto is, how realistic is enforcing that? Are there actual teeth to rein in foreign issuers who don't comply, or is it more of an aspiration at this point?
That's a really good point. Digital assets don't exactly respect lines on a map. So, okay, what does happen if issuers, whether they're here or abroad, don't follow these new rules? Does the bill actually have consequences for non-compliance? It sounds like it might.
It absolutely does. Yeah, the bill isn't messing around when it comes to violations. We're talking enforcement actions like substantial fines, potentially severe restrictions on how they can operate, and even in some cases, potential shutdowns. So the teeth are definitely there. And if you connect that to the bigger picture, the goals seem pretty clear. Protect users, reduce systemic financial risks, and ultimately foster more stability and transparency across the whole stablecoin sector. It's about building a system people can trust. Though, some folks in the crypto world might argue this level of regulation could potentially stifle innovation, especially for smaller players. It's always a balancing act.
Yeah, that balance is key. But the push for transparency and stability makes a lot of sense, especially when you look at the growth projections. Officials are forecasting the stablecoin market could hit, something like $3.7 trillion by 2030. That's huge. So the Genius Act really feels like a direct legislative attempt to get ahead of that massive potential expansion, doesn't it?
Precisely. By setting up clear legal rules and trying to sort of manage that explosive growth, Lawmakers see this as supporting America's long-term economic interests. It's not just about controlling the growth, it's about making sure that growth happens in a way that reinforces the existing financial system and maintains confidence. And that brings us to something I find particularly interesting: how the bill seems to actively support the dominance of the US dollar in this new digital finance world.
Okay, now that sounds really strategic. How does it do that exactly? Is it just because it requires backing by U.S. treasuries? Does that automatically just pump up demand for treasuries? Is it that straightforward?
It is, pretty much, and the potential ripple effect is quite significant. Yes, it likely boosts demand for U.S. treasuries, which in turn could definitely strengthen the dollar's role in international crypto transactions. That could strategically nudge digital innovation towards platforms regulated by the U.S. It's not just about helping the dollar today. It feels like a calculated play to set a kind of global standard for stablecoin regulation. It might push other countries to align with U.S. rules or risk getting left behind in a digital finance world that's becoming perhaps more centered around U.S. oversight. It's a powerful move to keep the dollar central.
That is a fascinating strategic layer to this. Okay, so the bill passed the Senate, big step. What's the immediate next hurdle for the Genius Act?
Right, so now it heads over to the House of Representatives. It'll face more debate there, and it's quite possible it can see some amendments, changes could be made. There's definitely a push to move quickly, though. The White House has apparently called for the House to pass it before the congressional recess in July, and the expectation is, if it does get through the House and lands on President Trump's desk, he'd likely consider it pretty promptly.
And it's important to remember, like you said, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Genius Act slots in alongside other crypto bills Congress is looking at, things like the Clarity Act, the Market Structure Bill. It seems like these are all pieces of a larger puzzle, right? Aiming for a more complete regulatory framework for digital assets in the U.S.
Absolutely. They all fit together. And ultimately, what happens in the House with the Genius Act will be really pivotal. It's going to significantly shape the direction of U.S. digital finance regulation for the foreseeable future. It determines the path forward for stablecoins and maybe the wider crypto market here. It's definitely an ongoing story.
So, boiling it down, the core takeaway from our deep dive today seems pretty clear. The Genius Act marks a really significant shift in how the U.S. is tackling digital assets, especially stablecoins. The big goals seem to be achieving greater clarity, boosting stability, and strategically reinforcing the U.S. dollar's central role in the digital economy.
Yeah, and that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? Given these new U.S. regulations and the strategic thinking behind them, how do you think the whole global landscape of digital finance might actually shift in the next few years? What does this mean for that balance between encouraging innovation versus ensuring financial stability worldwide? And could it change where the next wave of digital asset development actually happens?
That's a really powerful question. So many interconnected pieces there. We definitely encourage you, the listener, to keep digging into these topics. They're evolving so quickly.